by the military-industrial complex.
I'm just a patsy.
But I have a dream.
I said this once or twice, but it bears repeating. If you like your current insurance, you will keep your current insurance.
You think about the Army and the Navy and the missions they run to protect the world, they run on SAP.
Well, you have done a really spectacular job. I guess pretty much everybody at this table is your customer, so that's not so bad.
Exactly.
So I want to congratulate
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks.
And we're back. Wait, I don't hear you, George. You're muted.
Hi, how you doing?
There he is. He's unmuted.
I'm unmuted.
And then
Sorry for the delay, everybody. I apologize. It's my fault.
Just as soon as this thing started, the wind started blowing the window right next to my head. So
There you
craziness. So George, you're in Birmingham.
I was.
You were in
earlier-
Birmingham.
I was in Birmingham. My mother was born in Birmingham, Alabama, but this is Birmingham, England. And I was in at the Commonwealth Games earlier today. But then I decided, hey, let's go ahead and break a spy ring. And that would be the Klaus Fuchs spy ring with the Russian agent named Agent Sonia, who gave the bomb basically to Russia. So why not go down to Stratford-on-Avon, where she took, it's very close to here, where she gave all the secrets to Klaus Fuchs, or she got the secrets from Klaus Fuchs, excuse me, the other way around.
Is this the Rosenberg secrets?
No, that's the big throw.
That's a parallel construction?
No, I'm just saying this was where they got secrets every day. In the file folders this thick of really super critical information, day after day after day for the whole war, that really helped Russia build the bomb and really helped Russia get the H-bomb. Ethel Rosenberg is a patsy because she only wrote 7 pages, typed up 7 pages for Julius, and Orange Julius only wrote a very high level treatment of the explosive lens that you really couldn't build an explosive lens from if you tried. And they gave the death penalty to them to hide the fact that Klaus Fuchs here in England, right where I'm sitting, ran the whole war, even before the war and after the war. So they say
that's not a very Anglo-sounding name, Fuchs.
No, he was German. He was he was in Leipzig. But not only does Fuchs in Birmingham, they had the Tube Alloys project, and that was kind of the center of the.
So
British.
Fuchs was living in Birmingham.
Yeah. He was inserted into by Kim Philby, one of the Cambridge Five. He was inserted into the British Tube Alloys project, which was to make the atomic bomb. And after he worked there for a number of years, he was then inserted into our Manhattan project. He was at the Woolworth building in New York, where he worked with Bob Mueller's father's company, the metals, especially.
Yeah,
metals.
I was going to say, isn't that Mueller's father's company? Yeah,
the DuPont cutout. So, the Fuchs is also French. Interesting. Interesting. I know the German, the Fuggers, where we get the word, bad word, F word, were bankers, and so they were saying these Fuggers. But interestingly enough, Klaus Schwab. Here's what I'm saying, Peter.
Okay.
We can. Here's what I'm saying.
I think you're
We
a
can-
little delirious. You
I am delirious.
36,000 steps today or something?
Yeah. I had a lot of steps. I'm a
Okay.
little delirious, but I'll say this.
And
People
your
pay-
steps are big steps.
Big steps. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
been all over everywhere. And I couldn't get to my hotel room in Cambridge tonight. But anyway, which is sad, makes me sad. But anyway, people will pay typically 1/7 of their daily pay to go to a play. And that's been for 500 years throughout history. 1/7 of their daily pay. I think it goes actually back to the Romans.
To go
And-
to go
To a play.
play. Yes. Okay.
To go to a play.
Okay.
So if you make $300 a day, you're willing to spend $50. I think it's more than that, actually. But anyway, to see Shakespeare, which every play is about conspiracy. So now,
Yeah, that's true. And on the Duke Report, I think it's like it's 2 articles old, but Curtis Yarvin did a big long post on the Duke of Oxford. What's his name? William De Vere.
De Vere, yeah.
De Vere, like now the Shakespeare Society in Stratford on Avon has officially said that it was the Duke of Oxford. Of course, another contributor to the Duke Report is Alan Green, and Alan Green has done tremendous work on Shakespeare, decrypting the cover of Shakespeare's sonnets and the cover of the King James Bible, and he identified De Vere as years ago. So, and he seems to think that the evidence of that all of Shakespeare when he died, he didn't leave any written anything. There are 7 signatures that are supposedly his, but everything was printed, and so Green started to ask a few questions about that, and after he decoded the cover of the sonnets, he decoded the inscriptions on the interior of the Stratford-on-Avon chapel where supposedly William Shakespeare is buried, and he used a John Dee cipher to decipher the inscriptions, and he figured out that he believes that the archive of William Shakespeare's works are actually in a hollowed out space inside the altar stone of the church, and he, in order to confirm that, he wrote a musical because he's a musician as a tribute to William Shakespeare, and he convinced the people that run the Shakespeare Museum and run that chapel to allow him to do his play inside the chapel. And while his play was going inside the chapel, he snuck 2 guys in with LiDAR and had them do a LiDAR scan or some kind of ground penetrating radar. You take a ground penetrating radar and run it over the altar stone while he was doing a musical in the front of the chapel. And he found out that there's a big hollowed space in the altar stone, and it's got a bunch of documents in it. He believes that that's where the archive of William Shakespeare lives right now.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Well, I went by there today, but I didn't have the LiDAR X-ray vision Superman eyes.
I'll send you the video after this done. If you're around there, you should go check it out.
Yeah, I'm gonna be there. I'm here for the night, so
Yeah.
I just got to the point where I'd done so many steps, I just kind of fell over. But yeah, De Vere is interesting because I think there's a tapestry. He was the Earl of Oxford, so these guys are rich and they have castles and they have tapestries. And one of the tapestries has De Vere shaking a spear, literally. And that was supposed to be the wink or the tell that, hey, I'm Shakespeare. But in actual fact, I think, like, I hate to be one of these guys that say everybody's right, but I think everybody's going to be right on the whole Shakespeare conspiracy thing. I want to get away from the Shakespeare conspiracy.
Well, I mean, Alan Green intimates that he thinks that it was actually a collaboration between De Vere, Francis Bacon, and John Dee. Like the three of them work together because all of the encryption stuff. You've got one guy who's writing prose and poetry. You've got other people who are doing encryption. If you look at the encryption work that Alan Green did on Shakespeare's sonnets, it's all of the quote unquote mistakes that are in the printing that wind up becoming the clues that lead to decrypting the whole thing because they aren't really mistakes. And then when you understand how he did it in the sonnets, then you can start looking at the King James version of the Bible the same way. So it's interesting.
Sorry, it is very interesting. And I always said that, I mean, my belief has always been that there's been three distinct periods of Shakespeare. I didn't mean to get into Shakespeare tonight, but there was certainly the early period, which is the Romantic period. And then there was the middle period where he gets banished or somebody gets banished. You know, banished, you know, Romeo says banished. And then he writes what I call the Italy plays or the continental plays, which are more like sophisticated. I got to be on the down low here. I can't say my name is Christopher Marlowe anymore because I'll get killed. Some nobleman in England is trying to kill me right now. So I got to be a little bit more coded. And then I think at the end of his career, you have the tragedies, which are more this kind of salting of the character at the end of his life, looking back on his life, and he looks at all these intrigues. But the running thread through the whole thing is conspiracy, and people are paying a good deal of their money to really, you know, watch plays about conspiracy that happened 400 years ago. Now, the interesting thing is, while these people are doing that during World War II, right here where I'm sitting right now, this spiring to give the Russians the bomb is happening. So there's a little town called Great Rollright, a little bit from here. That's where they do the dead drops. That's where Klaus Fuchs is leaving Birmingham Tube Alloys project. He's giving these notes and micrographs and microfilm to this agent named Agent Sonia. So there's a tremendous consciousness in the British people. They'll pay ungodly amounts of money to go watch the plays about conspiracy. But yet, as they walk into the playhouse, the conspiracy about their national security that is the most relevant to their lives is happening right under their feet. And they're missing it, and they're missing it. And that's the big reason why I came to Stratford, is to say conspiracies can happen right under your feet while you're paying tremendous amounts of dollars to go watch plays about conspiracies 400 years ago.
Well, here's one that I uncovered the other day because my wife and I read the Catholic Bible every morning. And she was reading a passage the other day where the words poles and globe were mentioned in the passage. And I went, whoa. When this thing, we were all taught in school that when this thing was written, that everybody thought the earth was flat. How is it that there's a globe and poles in here? And so I looked it up, and it's in a couple different passages in the Catholic Bible. Then I went and I looked in the King James. Now, what's interesting about the King James is that it was also a project that was overseen by Francis Bacon. And the word poles and the word globe have been taken out of the King James version of the Bible. So I got to do some exegesis and actually go find out what the actual words were that were written in Greek or Aramaic or whatever they were written in. But it's interesting that the King James version is definitely written in English, and the words pole and globe are definitely taken out of that Bible, which is interesting because I think it came out around 1609. But the sonnets came out around 1609. I think the King James version of the Bible came out around the same time, maybe a couple of years before or after. So it was contemporary. And so Columbus had already, gone over and discovered the New World at that point. But it just seems interesting to me because Bacon was a geometer and a mason, right? But the words globe and pole have been taken out of the King James Version of the Bible. It's interesting.
Well, I think Sir Francis Drake, who was the favorite of Queen Elizabeth, her favorite pirate, had been forced. He was on the west coast of the United States. He was forced basically by bad weather around the pole, the southern tip of South America, the Straits of Good Hope and stuff. Not the Good Hope. It's the other one. He bad weather forced him to, and the Spanish forced him to go west and circumnavigate the globe. So the circumnavigation of the globe that we all talk about, which of course, I think Vasco da Gama is the guy who gets the credit. It's the Portuguese guy who does it first. But when Drake does it, he's forced to go do it.
Right.
So I think that's when the idea of this circular Earth really takes hold in the Elizabethan court. But I could see where King James would kind of want to write it out.
The conspiracy of 1609 is that, or the early 1600s, is that they wanted everyone to believe the Earth was flat because they knew North America was there to be exploited, and that they didn't want anyone to go looking for it. So they created a COINTELPRO, counterintelligence program that would keep people from getting on ships and sailing west because they didn't want them doing that.
I think there's some truth in that. I mean, I think all the great powers knew about it. I mean, the Spanish knew about it, and but they certainly didn't want to add any juice to the party. But now you have a model, right, in your head where you say, okay, millions of people coming here to Stratford and Avon every year to watch the plays, spending tremendous ungodly amounts of their treasure, of their life earnings, to go watch conspiracy plays that happened 400 years ago. When at that same time, the most important secrets that could possibly ever be comprehended were coming out in droves just to a city to the north of me in Birmingham, from Klaus Fuchs to Agent Sonia. Okay, the irony is too rich, right? Now, so we've established the foundation of the rich irony. Now remove that rich irony once again to DC, where we have 6 operatives, 6, including one Ukrainian operative named Natalia Sova, 6 operatives on Capitol Hill for 12 years. We're Agent Sonia, the Russian agent lady here, who had 3 children. She wasn't like, this Oconus lure, living these wild party life, right? So, and she was a long way from Moscow. Oxford is a long way from Moscow, but she was able to exfiltrate the bomb secrets. Can you imagine what six in the spy ring for Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Nancy Pelosi on Capitol Hill? Terabytes going to Pakistan every day, encrypted BlackBerries everywhere you look. You can't walk a step in any direction without stepping on an encrypted BlackBerry. People can't accept that. Can't accept that there was a spy ring in Congress, a bio ring in Congress. But yet they'll pay ungodly amounts of their life treasure to go see a play about something that happened 400 years ago where there was a conspiracy.
Well, there's the rub, George.
And I can't remember who said that. It was Hamlet. It was Hamlet in the big speech. Right?
There's the rub, George. And that's and that's what we're up against now. It's I had a conversation with William H. Teal III a few weeks ago. I put that video up of his. I've been working on a script. I worked all day on a script for the video that I'm doing on Teal, and it's like crickets. Like nobody, it's not being picked up by anybody. Paul Cottrell and I did a video last week where I put a box around him, and I said, let's do what George calls the full flight of the arrow, and let's start at the beginning of the timeline and take me all the way through the whole thing. We did that. We got about, I would say we got about 95% done, and then it was so long, I really had to go to the bathroom, so I had to cut it off. I have to make a commercial for this channel so that I can take care of business. But anyway, we did a really good job on that. But I think that the combined views on that across all of the channels is like, I don't know, 2,000 views or something. And it's like, he really breaks it down. You know, he goes, it started here and this happened and Barrick did this at North Carolina and blah, 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 blah. You know, she did this in China, blah, 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 blah. And it's not, you know, it's not the most interesting television, right? But if you want to know what actually happened, he does a really good job of, you know, taking you all the way across. So, and I believe that that's probably just because most people are watching plays.
Yeah, I mean, as you like it or whatever, it's interesting, and you know how it's going to turn out. But Cottrell was my wellspring in March 2020. I had talked to him, and he went through the whole thing. USAID predict, and here's all the POs, and here's what they're doing with the spike protein. Here's the helper protein. You know, boom, boom, furin cleavage, HIV, the retrovirus. You know, here it all is. He laid it all out in February of 2020.
So we need to all encourage Paul to get the domain name drpaulcottrell.com, because
that would be good.
Yeah, because he's got all the documents on his website, but his website is the-studio-reykjavik.com. I asked him how to spell it,
and he
couldn't spell it. I said, Paul, this is the issue everyone's got. I put it up on the screen. I put it in the show notes. You know, it's all there. But, you know.
Yeah. Anything that's got a handle quality to it would be helpful.
Yeah.
But no, Cottrell, I mean, I hate to say it, but he kind of laid it all out in February 2020.
Right.
And said, this is the juice. And the helper protein, GP41, this is what's doing the cell fusion. That's what makes it more infective than SARS. He just boom, 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 boom in 5 minutes. Just kind of, you know, and I'm like hit by a snowdrift, right? So I'm kind of digging myself out. But as I dig myself out, I go, oh my God, that was a hell of a great information dump. I know so much now. And it all turned out to be true. It's all been verified now.
Yeah.
You know, 2 years later.
But people are watching plays. They're watching Netflix. They're watching Don't Look Up. They're watching, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like they're watching videos about sentient light forms in the injections, or graphene oxide, or the latest one is morticians that are pulling, you know, what looks like aliens out of cadavers.
Well, you know, DIA, you know, runs these counter intel ops, you know, where they give people Patreon to say these ridiculous things. But Paul's a real doctor, and he's a real scientist, and he really does a great job. And unfortunately, well, put it this way, I don't agree that Netflix is more interesting. To me, this is the most interesting television in the world, because it's this answer to the test.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like you could go watch
Cliff Notes.
Yeah. You can go watch the alien invasion, but it's not real. It's not real. This is what's really happening to you and your family in your life right now.
Right.
And it's kind of a fun story. You know what I mean? Hey,
No, I don't know what you mean.
well, I mean, there's a War of the Worlds, you know, H.G. Wells type excitement to it all. You know, H.G. Wells, I was in the little town of Woking, which is like waking, you know.
Yeah.
And H.G. Wells wrote and set War of the Worlds there, and then of course he wrote New World Order. You put those two together, and you know
I read. It's funny. Right before COVID started, I read 5 H.G. Wells novels, and because I want, and you know, the thing is about War of the Worlds is it's about humanity being cowed, literally. Like, when the Martians show up, the humans don't mean anything to them. They're cattle. Like they do with them as they will. There's no reasoning with them. And then they were ended by a virus, right?
Yeah, it's all about a virus.
The Invisible Man is about a community that is terrorized and completely controlled by something they can't see. You know,
Yeah.
The Island of Dr. Moreau is about like what could go wrong with chimeras, you know, with chimeric DNA experiments.
It's fascinating, you know.
Yeah.
I think there's Aerosmith is the hero on Island of Dr. Moreau. If I can't remember, but he's the hero because he comes up with a cure. He comes up with a vaccine. You know, they were pushing mRNA way back then, right? But I'm just saying that if you want a broad sweep of literature and history kind of put together,
Yeah.
this is the show for you, because you don't really need to read the book. We'll give you the cliff notes. You know,
And if you want the regular Cliff Notes, if you go to the Duke Report and look up the book, there's usually always a video there that will distract you from actually reading the book.
yeah, I mean, people, you have to realize though that people have a lot of, you know, they sources, and they follow a lot of people, and they're looking for the juice, and they don't want to spend a lot of time for things that aren't the juice. So is George back in England tracking a story? Yes. I'm tracking a story about how people will give away a child to get a play ticket to go watch a conspiracy play, but won't see the conspiracy going on right under their feet, which gives the bomb to England, which gives the H-bomb to England. It goes on during the whole war. And if one woman with a bicycle can give the H-bomb to Russia, imagine what 6 operatives can do on Capitol Hill.
Right.
She wasn't in Russia. These are 6 operatives sending terabytes to Pakistan with encrypted BlackBerries, and we get left physical evidence. Imagine what 6 could do. So that's what the juice is right here. That's why we're in England. That's why we're here, where the H-bomb was given to Russia.
Right. Well, and then the other, you know, potential here. Wait, should I put on my high octane speculation banner? Is that there's a lot of similarities between the events that you're going to right now and like the Wuhan games, right?
Yeah, where I was today, Birmingham has 72 countries in the Commonwealth. Can you believe England still has 72 countries in the Commonwealth? That kind of shocked me a little bit.
You know what's even more interesting? The city of London isn't in it.
No. They got
the city of London is its own thing.
Yeah. They're an autonomous entity. Yeah, they can do whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
And with Basel, you know, those two are never going to get in the games. But
right.
I had a chance to walk around the streets today with a lot of the athletes and their athletes' families from different countries. You know, Grenada, just all these countries you just didn't even, you know, a lot of island nations that you just didn't even remember were Commonwealth countries. But the idea here is, the big idea is the flyaway model. The flyaway model is, if you want to solve a coronavirus, how it started, you have to look at the metadata. There's patterns. You can look at a diffusion pattern, which is the Lee Harvey fishmonger pattern, where everybody goes on walks and takes bicycles away from the fish market. Some take trains, very few take planes. That's not the pattern, right? The pattern is a flyaway pattern. The pattern is everybody flies into one central location. They compete for games, 18 days or so. They all get channeled right back to the airport, and they all fly away. It's a flyaway pattern, and that's the juice. So I went to the Commonwealth Games to say this is a flyaway pattern.
Right. So, and somebody once said, keep your eye on the donut, not on the hole, right? So the flyaway pattern's a donut.
Yeah. That's a very good advice. So I think in all these things, Peter, you know, I'm glad you did the thing with Cottrell. I talked to a lot of viewers of you and me and Mark Kulak and John O'Loughlin went on this trip. And I don't have time to watch everybody.
Right. Yeah. Who does?
Yeah. So I really enjoy it when people who watch all of us say, "Oh, this is what I really thought was great." And they were talking about your thing with. Did you do a thing with Kevin McCarran?
No, I don't know who Kevin McCarran is.
Okay, I'm trying to think. Then did you do a thing with the guy who the writer guy, history guy? Oh, I'm trying to remember his
Matthew
name.
Arrett?
Matthew Arrett, yeah.
No, but I've been passing him around. My friend Michael Parker did an interview with Matthew Arrett this week.
But you don't have an interview yet with Matthew Arrett.
I did. I did do something with Matthew Arrett like 6 or 8 weeks ago.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And they were saying how that was great, and just different moments that different people have. Cottrell, I think, not Cottrell. Mark Kulak did a thing with Michael.
With Matthew Arrett?
No, with the monkey, the guy who cuts the monkey brains.
Okay.
Kevin McCarran.
Okay.
And they enjoyed that. So it's just interesting to go to people who've already looked at all of our stuff as one big glom and said, here are the things that I think are the best.
Right.
The best of the best. And that's really intrinsically super interesting, because I would have to go, if that didn't happen, I would have to go watch all that stuff, and I don't have time.
Sure.
So
yeah, because all of this stuff takes time. Like, people, I do a show once a week. Michael Parker has a radio show. It's terrestrial radio. I do terrestrial radio, and like in Australia or something. And I'm on his show once a week, and he asked me about the Duke Report. And the thing is about the Duke Report is that it's an aggregator, and if you wanted to consume all of the content that was on the Duke Report, it would probably take you more than a day to do it. So when I get on people's shows and they go, what's can you tell me about this article on the Duke Report? Well, it might have showed up 10 minutes before I got on the air. Like I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's there. It's really kind of a resource for people who want to go find stuff. And so I just with the Duke Report by itself, it's like drinking water out of a fire hose, like just trying to consume all of the information that's there. So it is good to have a community, but as you're saying this, it makes me think that we should probably have a forum or something like Dr. Cottrell has, where all of the people who are kind of fans, John's got his Ospreys, and you've got your people, and the Duke Report has their people. Maybe there should just be a landing zone where they can all kind of get together and communicate with one another. We should probably try to figure that out.
Yeah, I think there is some, but without any commercials or any filler, I think there is a best of the best kind of demand, where it would be great if it was all one show. I'm thinking from the viewer point of view. I saw folks commenting about India and Pakistan. Both are still, I believe, members of the Commonwealth.
Actually, that's not a bad idea, because Richard Grove does his show on Sunday, and it can be 6 to 8 hours long. And because he works during the week, he runs his autonomy university, and he has producers that basically pay attention to all of the things that are going on during the week, and then he does one big show on Sunday, and that's it. And then his producers will cut that show up into different segments, and so you can go watch them, in shorter chunks later. You don't have to watch a 7-hour show. But maybe that's a good idea. Maybe the people that follow us, we could figure out a way to get them to pull clips, or basically they don't even have to pull clips. They just have to give us a URL and the time code, and then we could do a show on Sunday where we just go over all of that stuff. The nice thing about rolling in other people's content is you can get up and go to the bathroom.
That's huge consideration right there.
Yeah.
No, I think somebody said we're not fans, we just support your work. I totally agree with that. We are just happen to be in front of the camera, and we are.
Neither one of us wanted to do this.
Right. We were forced at the head, a gun barrel. And there are just so many great researchers out there that we just take the best of the best. We try to do that individually.
Sure.
But what I'm talking about is a super show where the best of the best and the best of the best, so it totally juices your time. And I think there is some.
That's not a bad idea. So just basically copy Richard Grove's format. We wouldn't have to do it on Sunday, so we wouldn't have to compete with Richard Grove. Maybe we could do it on a Saturday. And we just collect all of the things from the previous, the highlights of Mark Kulak, the highlights of John O'Loughlin, the highlights of Paul Cottrell, and put them together.
Yeah, I think everybody has a angle. John. I mean, if I think of like their angles, John has the secret team.
A beat.
Yeah, a beat, a focus, or whatever. The juice. John O'Loughlin has the secret team. He knows because his dad was Saxon. Fletcher Prouty was Saxon. So Fletcher Prouty wrote the secret team. John has the secret team. Mark is deep research on a lot of things, so it's hard to put him in one box.
Yeah, and one of the comments that I've gotten in the last couple of weeks on these videos is somebody asked, can you do a video where you teach people how to be, researchers, how to do citizen journalism? And I know that Lee tried to do that at one point, but my response was, go look at the search engines and those types of things that I have on the Duke Report. But yeah, I think that there are a lot of people who would like to figure out a way to participate, a way to contribute, and there is kind of a hole. I steered the guy towards James Corbett too, because he does occasionally he'll do a video on how to search for things or how to dig things up.
My thing is Spitfire pilots. If you learn the compound search, you go from being a little kid.
I think this is a joke.
What's that? Yeah, yeah, because it got hacked so mercilessly. Yeah. But it is a joke now. But
no, we're gonna have our own pirate ship. We're not gonna go with somebody else's platform. Whatever we do, it's gonna be ours.
But the one of the favorite things of kids in World War II, like 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, was they would go out and watch the Spitfires go shoot down all the
Messerschmitts,
Messerschmitts
and the Junkers,
and the Heinekens and the Heinekels or whatever. Heinkels.
Yeah.
And that was what they would do. But that is fun. But wouldn't it be great if you learned how to do a compound search and you go from a watcher of news to getting up in the plane and shooting down the false narrative yourself?
Right.
Remember, Donnie O'Sullivan and CNN are coming to lay waste on your cities with false narratives. They're coming.
They are laying waste. They
are
coming.
coming.
They're there
every night. Every night they're coming and they're laying waste to your cities. You have to decide. If you know how to put an and in between two nouns and become a Spitfire pilot and shoot down the false narratives. That's your decision. And I think this is the thing I've been doing this. I've spent my whole life savings on trying to do citizen journalism in schools and everything else and charrettes. It's a tough one because people do want to they're like, well, being a Spitfire pilot, we have to go right away, before they bomb our cities. We have to go right now. I can't play golf or take my kid to the soccer. And it's
I mean, it does become like a weird thing. Like, when Bill Taylor posted that 7-year-old video of William Teal talking about TWA 800, and I figured out that he lived a few miles from me. Like, I felt like I better get this guy on tape, like, as fast as possible. Like, I better get video on him now because things happen, you know? And I kind of dropped everything. And I was working on 3 other things. And that's my biggest issue right now is just trying to figure out how to prioritize things. Because I'm working on this play that I want to do. I started working on a website as a book that I told you about last time. But that has everything to do with the play, because the reason I wanted to do the play was because I felt like there's a lot of concepts that people don't understand about the New World Order and the way that they're organized and about the way that they do things. And you can do what Carol Quigley did, and you can make a book that's
Tragedy and Hope.
this thick, you know.
You can kill somebody with that.
But the problem is that nobody will read it. And to your point about a play, if I could take Tragedy and Hope and synthesize the main psychological components of the New World Order and how they work and how they talk to each other and how they plan and how they execute, and put it into 90 minutes, 90 pages, because a 90-minute screenplay is usually a 90-page script. Then people could go watch it, and then they go, oh, I understand how the world really works, instead of what my 8th grade U.S. history teacher told me.
Yeah, I have the 9-second summary of Tragedy and Hope, which is really smart guys really rich guys hire really smart guys to make really rich guys richer.
Yeah, and they have no moral compass or ethics.
Right, but that's the gist of Tragedy and Hope. You now save 1,200 pages, and now you will have better comprehension. This is my thing about these super simple summaries. You will have better comprehension. You'll impress people at parties more. You will stop traffic with, impressing people with your intelligence, because you know what Tragedy and Hope is about, and nobody else does. Even the guy who wrote it, Carol Quigley, at the end of it, seemed a little bit delirious.
Yeah,
seemed a little incoherent.
Well, he spent the rest of his career defending why these guys weren't such bad guys. It's like,
see what I mean? Is you lose focus.
Yeah,
really rich guys, and you know what? When you say it like that, it's like everything's conspiracy theory, right? Well, what is really the conspiracy theory? The conspiracy theory is really, really, really rich guys like Rockefeller, who have a whole bunch of oil reserves in the ground and gas reserves all over the world and metal, will hire really smart men and women who can figure out how to take those reserves and say, instead of doing $55 a barrel in oil, we can make that $55,000 in pharmaceuticals. What? Rockefeller says, promote that guy. Right. That's the guy I want to promote. And then Tragedy and Hope becomes a real tool to understand the world.
Right. And let's take bread mold and
let's
take bread mold and all bacterial infections on the planet, and figure out how we can charge huge amounts of money for bread mold.
Well, you make light of it, but Fleming and the whole crew there with the penicillin, they suppressed that for years until World War II, and cartelled penicillin, and tried to corner the market on penicillin before World War II. Mm-hmm. And sulfa drugs in World War I. So Bayer was big in this. So Huxt and others. The tragedy of Tragedy and Hope is it's 1,200 pages.
Yeah.
The hope is the 9 seconds that delivers you the juice. So if you think of it, Carol wrote the tragedy part, and George gave you the 9-second juice hope part, and then it becomes easy.
A lot of people like Matthew Ehret because he's upbeat. he's, you know,
I like Matthew Aaron because he's upbeat.
Yeah, a lot of people get blackpilled because, you know, they uncover all of these things. Somebody said to me, I don't know if you've been following the Alex Jones drama, but, you know, Carrie and I were with Alex Jones a few days ago, and on the last day of his trial, they basically put him in a perjury trap, and his attorney gave the plaintiff's attorney gave him his entire cell phone, including all of his emails and text messages, asked him questions about documents that he did not think had been given to the plaintiff's attorney. He claimed that he didn't know what the plaintiff's attorney was talking about, and then the plaintiff's attorney produced the emails like a Perry Mason movie, and then let Alex Jones know that his defense attorney had provided the plaintiff's attorney with all of the evidence that they needed to put him in a perjury trap. So it's malpractice, right? At like the highest order. But the issue is that he can sue his attorney for malpractice from prison, right? When he's in prison for perjury. And once you're in prison, like, they can have their way with you if they want.
Well, I don't think Alex is going to prison. I think he's going to appeal the $40 million judgment. But
well, let's see if he gets slapped with perjury.
I don't think so. I think I mean, I hate to say Alex rested on his laurels, but Alex did a damn good job with 9/11. And he got into the A.J. Goodman thing where, hey, I'm going to sit in the studio and I'm going to just comment and I'm not going to go out and see people. And Sandy Hook, I think, was 2006-ish. I went to Sandy Hook 10 years after Sandy Hook. But I went to the cafes and, you know, just simple 101. And I talked to all these people and the kids were dead. Right? I mean, the families and stuff, the kids died. And Alex in Austin, unfortunately, God love you, Alex, but you got to get out of your basement. You got to get out of your studio. There was real murdered kids. I looked at the situation.
Yeah, false flags do not mean that people do not die.
Something happened with those 20 kids that were mentally whatever. But Lanza had help. Lanza couldn't brush his teeth. The thing I came away with after spending 3 or 4 days up there was Lanza couldn't even brush his teeth, let alone fire a weapon.
Right.
He had help. There was 2 guys we had in black bloc going into the woods. And I said, Lanza had help. That was my last thing. Well, Alex was on the other end. Alex was on the other end of the spectrum saying fake.
Right. Because
he was going on video. He wasn't going on direct experience talking to people who knew the kids.
Yep.
And I mean, if you're dealing with that.
Well, not only that, but by going and talking to those people the way that you did, like you get, I mean, and I've watched you do it. Like George shows up at places and his MO is to just kind of blend into the countryside and make himself part of the countryside and talk to whoever's around. And it's interesting the number of people that you run into, George. But the issue that I think that we're running into now, and it was Jason Burmis who kind of really woke me up to that idea of signature reduction. And I can really see it now. Like if you go onto any kind of trending topic, yesterday I think it was MAGA morons, hashtag MAGA morons. And there were all of these posts about MAGA morons. And if you see a post that's being promoted to you as one of the top tweets under MAGA morons by Twitter, okay, and it's something that's really inflammatory, right? And it's got like 10 retweets already. And then you go and you click to see who the person was that wrote it. And you see that they follow 43 people and they have 7 followers. Well, we all know how Twitter works. If you've got 7 followers, you don't get 10 retweets ever on anything. So you look at that, and to me, that's just like obviously signature reduction. So what I'll do is I'll quote tweet it with the hashtag signature reduction, because what I want is for my followers to go look at that tweet, right? Go look at how it's put together. Go look at how the words were that they chose. Forget the fact that it's inflammatory or they're calling you names or doing whatever it is that they're doing. If you're a MAGA moron, I was a MAGA moron. I'm not a MAGA moron anymore. But if you take a look at those things, then you can see that there's signature reduction. Why am I talking about this? Because you know this, George, that when you get to a point where you have a certain audience, there's always people out there who are trying to feed you crap that they want you to repeat. They want you to internalize it into your worldview and then spit it out on your channel. And those are, counterintelligence programs. They're all over the place. And so I think that what happened is that Alex probably had people who he trusted, the same way that I think Stu Peters. I like Stu Peters. I'm friends with Stu Peters, but I think people feed him crap all the time, and he puts it out on his show, and he may get a lot of clicks or a lot of links on that crap, but I think a lot of it is crap, and I think you've got to be very careful of what you're actually going to reflect from the stuff that you've got incoming.
Yeah, it's really hard as you get into a bigger organization with 50, 60 people. And I'm not trying to undermine Alex here or anything. I mean, I think that's really hard. When we had a small organization, 5 or 6, it's really hard when you have 5 or 6. But when you're, kind of going to that next level, I had 4 sources on my Fort Belvoir story. And so I felt really, really confident. And I still got hit by 60 Minutes and CNN. So
right.
They'll still go after you if it's a narrative they want to push. And I think it's really hard because it goes out to 50 million people, and it's being pushed in a network that has been around since Ted Turner. So it's wired for getting to 50 million people in 24 hours.
Well, at least they're not in the airports anymore.
Yeah, remember back then where they could any false narrative they wanted to push out,
And when you push it out to people who are getting on airplanes, they're moving that story around the world,
Yeah, I mean it's the perfect strategy for all singing from the same song sheet. So I feel bad. I feel bad for Alex. I hope he appeals it. I think there's room for appeal here. I think absence of malice, I think number one. I think that he had a malice verdict, and I think he's got an absence of malice claim here. It's still going to be $1 million or so, but I think you can wind your way back saying, here's the things I did to do the fact checking and try to ameliorate the situation, and that could also attenuate the fine.
Right.
So I hate to see the number one thing I hate to see is all these people put money into InfoWars and then it all goes down the drain in a lawsuit. That really makes me hurts my heart.
Right. Well, it probably hurts them too.
Yeah, I mean he hasn't paid anything yet. I saw Owen Schroyer on there. There's a lot of things in that trial that didn't make sense. I heard the judge say this isn't a real cross-examination. Well, I said, if it is not a real cross-examination, it's not a real trial.
Well, it wasn't a real trial. There was no trial. The judge didn't let it go to trial. She ruled him guilty because she said that he was withholding evidence, and it went directly to the penalty phase. There was no trial.
Yeah, summary judgment like that without some jurisprudence, that's an appealable situation for sure.
Yeah, it is.
So they're going to go another round, but I do think there's a lesson here, which is get on the airplane. I know it's hard. but get on the airplane, walk the 32,000 steps, go talk to everybody in all the different coffee shops.
Because that was how Alex started.
That is how he started.
He
and
went to
did some-
Waco.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And the gumshoe journalism really works. At least it gives you a reality
He
check.
went to Bohemian Grove.
I know. Remember those early days? He snuck in. I don't know how he got in. But those early days. of
Watch
Alex
the
Jones-
movie.
Yeah, the new one. Those early days, Alex Jones, he was doing a lot of great stuff, and I like that. I don't want to criticize that. I think this is one of those deals where, as you get bigger, you have to be more and more careful. 70 people, $70 million operation, 3 satellites. You got to be careful.
Yeah, I went 5 versions on my script with William Teal, because I said, when you're doing this stuff, you can't get one thing wrong. Like you can't have one mistake. And so he's fairly convinced at this point that because I took him through this process, I'm not coaching him in any way, shape, or form. But Kathy O'Brien wrote this book called PTSD: A Time to Live, I think, which was her Central Intelligence Agency or DIA program that her husband, Mark Phillips, put her through, where he basically gave her a pad of paper and a pencil and took all of the distractions away from her and said, you need to start writing down what happened to you. And she said, why? And he said, because the more you write, the more you'll remember. And what's great about that process is that it works, and you're not coaching them. There's none of these, you go talk to a psychiatrist or a psychologist and they're accusing, then later you're getting accused because they gave false memories to you or something like that. Like, I'm not coaching Teal at all. I told him, I said, get a 3-ring binder and a pencil and start writing all this stuff down. And as he's writing it all down, it's coming back to him. So he's fairly convinced at this point that it was the Lady Gulf that fired the last missile that hit TWA 800. Stalcup, the physicist, thinks that was just the 3rd missile that hit it.
Yeah, you showed that video the other day. I mean, I think this is the nice thing about TWA 800 as a case is it's like a business school case where you can get your arms around it, you can get your head around it, and who, what, when, where, and how, or why it really kind of rolls out quickly, and you can make your decisions, journalistic decisions, really pretty easily. And so that's why I like TWA 800, because it's one of the first cases that was on the internet. It is how internet journalism can be runaway journalism.
Mm-hmm.
And it is how it can spawn a million conspiracy theories. And it is also how, like you say, patience with a witness could get to the truth. Same way it would be in a real court and a real witness. This is the same thing that you go through. So I like TWA 800 for a lot of different reasons as a model case. Coronavirus as a case, I always compare the two, is the other end, where it's just like 100 countries and, when did it break out here? When did it break out there? And all this. And so it's a lot more complex, and that's a hard one to be your first metadata case. But I like both of them because I think one hand washes the other on this kind of thinking.
One of the crazy things, Bill Taylor found this. Let me see if I can share this.
A good scarf helps get the message out, Thermopstrable said. So these are good jokes. I don't want to let them go by. Yeah.
A good scarf?
He's making fun of Deborah Burks, where she was.
Deborah Burks, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me show you this. So Captain Ray, Keith L. Ray, was the captain of the car. The car used the spy a Spy 1A radar system to paint TWA 800 with the radar, and then, according to Teal, the Lady Gulf shot the last missile that hit TWA 800. He was quickly transferred to the Army War College, which I found interesting because he's
Carlisle, Pennsylvania. I've done many stories there.
because he's Navy. But Bill Taylor found this paper that he wrote, which is called Two Hands on the Sword, a study of political military relations in national security policy. Now, I haven't read this yet, but it seems to me that maybe this guy was trying to tell us something. And shortly after this thing was published, he died of cancer.
Well, I hate to say this proves the Hessian barracks, theory that Washington set out all these Hessian barracks after the revolution to make sure that, the Hessians had a spy network inside the U.S. government from the first days. But if I hadn't gone to Carlisle to the Army War College and spent a couple of days there talking to people, I wouldn't know that the Hessian barracks are embedded. And at the end of the war, all these Hessians got to keep. Normally the losers lose everything. The Hessians got to keep all the land. So this two hands on the sword is an interesting.
What's also interesting about the Hessians. You know how the Bank of England was started by the Rothschilds?
Yep.
Is that what's his? He's not a prince of Hesse. It was the elector of Hesse.
The Helvetia, you mean?
I don't know. Whoever the guy was who sent the Hessians over to help the British. Okay. He sent his gold to London to pay the British. I'm sorry, to pay the Hessian soldiers that were fighting the Americans. And the Rothschild Bank, that is the Bank of England, put the gold in their vaults and then issued paper script to the Hessians, and then started doing fractional reserve lending with the gold that they had deposited, that had been deposited in order to pay the Hessian troops fighting the Americans.
Never let a good chance to speculate and misappropriate go untaken.
Yeah.
The Rothschilds. I mean, they're another case 101 of stock manipulation and bond manipulation.
Sure.
These are things that they don't teach you in school, but I'm telling you what,
they don't even teach you it in economics.
You need, and I had a 4-year degree in economics. You need to learn this shit about stock manipulation and bond manipulation for real, for you and your clients, if you don't want to get skinned on Wall Street. So this is really super practical information. And by looking at all these old games and old swindles, you learn a lot. These guys, these old timers, knew what they were doing. And this one certainly seems to be, this goes all the way back. I hate to say it, but the Knights Hospitalier. Remember the Knights Hospitalier. Remember the Knights of Malta. 9 times they went to Jerusalem, right? They only won once, the first time, with a whole bunch of true believers, right? Why did the next 8 fail? Because they were all the knights slowly riding through the countryside, getting all the food and dating all the girls on the way. It took them forever to get to Jerusalem, right? And that's why the other 8 failed, right? These are the guys that come up with checking.
Right.
They came up with checking.
Knights Templar, actually.
Knights Templar, Knights Hospitalier, all these sort of. But they didn't want to travel with the gold, so they came up with these certificates, gold certificates. And I think the bank, the Vatican Bank, was the one that, and then there was Venetian Bank later on that managed the paper. But again, you create a market, a trading market, and you can then speculate on a trading market as soon as you have paper against some asset.
Yeah, and it's interesting too that you say that because I've worked closely with some journalists in the past, and one thing that I noticed about the ones that seem to do well is before they ever publish the story, they start considering how whatever it is that they're writing about is going to affect the market and whether or not they should go buy something or sell something or short something. I mean, one of the things that I think that people don't really understand is that a lot of bad news about big corporations, if you've got the inside track on Boeing 737XL, if you know some, there's a lot of people who see a plane crash and they go and they short stock. The famous there's a book called Freakonomics, I think, by Edward Serwicki, by James Serwicki, and he talks about how it took the Challenger Commission like 2 years, with Richard Feynman, to determine that it was the solid rocket boosters and it was the O-rings on the Morton Thyrocol solid rocket boosters. What Serwicki points out in that book is that within 10 minutes of the Challenger disaster, the three contractors, which I believe were North American Rockwell, Lockheed, and Morton Thyrocol, that all of their stocks started to go south, but Morton Thyrocol's stock went south at 3 times the rate that Rockwell and Lockheed did. And so his argument was that the market knew what happened to the Challenger within 10 minutes. It took the government another 2 years to figure it out. And so yeah, if you start to look at news as investment opportunities, it's a weird game because you got to kind of be a little bit of a sociopath to really kind of do well at it. But people do.
Well, Hassim Talib wrote the quintessential book, The Black Swan Event, The Black Swan.
Yeah, Nassim Talib. Yeah.
Talib. Yeah, and how to profit from that. David Petraeus said, "Hey, we start a war. This is easy."
Yeah, but the part that Talib leaves out though is that these things are all manufactured. So, well, wait. What was?
Yeah. Fauci's dad. Fauci's dad worked at Morton Thyrocol. We never have a pandemic. I
wonder if young Fauci worked on O-rings.
Yeah, I doubt it. So Peter, in Europe they have these things, and there's a little adapter that gives you a 3-prong, and I don't know what I did with my adapter, and so I'm losing power here as I speak.
And so it's been an hour. It's been an hour and 10 minutes. You did 38,000 steps today. Maybe we should wrap it up.
Yeah. I was just looking at the comments and just saying, great stuff. If you want to profit ethically, right? George probably learned the communication skills listening to his mother cutting hair, yakking while he read books. Oh, that's scary. I hate to say this, but you learn a lot by listening to other people and their conversations and what they talk about. I really believe that. And that's why you don't even have to interview anybody when you go places. If there's been some recent thing like a shooting or something like that, it's going to be the topic of conversation. And everybody's going to be talking about it. So you don't have to necessarily go, "Hey, I'm George Webb, and I'd like to ask you a few questions." That's a good follow-up. But if somebody knows you're coming in to do a story, you get a very different reaction to, "Hey, wow, did you hear about that?" And you're one of the neighbors. You're on the jungle beat like they are, and going, "Hey, what's going on? Did you hear this? Did you hear that?" And I try to play it low key, not be the reporter guy coming in and whatever. And I do think that helps in a lot of these cases. And I don't know if that would help the TWA 800, but with coronavirus, we spent a lot of time at Fort Belvoir, and Task Force and I, and after she died, and we spent a lot of time at Fort Detrick, and we did the homework, and we saw that Awan spy ring wasn't all in DC. There was this key person named Hina Alvey who was supposedly down married to Imran Awan in Lorton, Virginia, and she was living at Fort Detrick. Now, that's where they make the bioweapons, folks. And so that didn't make any sense to me. And at the trial, again, this is where you have the cognitive dissonance. If you go to the trial and everybody says how much they love each other, and I'm like, do you realize you live 80 miles apart? I mean, I don't want to be that person to bring you the bad news here, but you're 80 miles apart here. And that's where when people start lying, that's my clue. That's my metadata.
Yeah, well, they start lying, and then the attorneys don't start calling them on their lies.
Yeah.
That's another one. I mean, anybody who's seen the Joel Gilbert film, The Great Trayvon Hoax, it's unreal. The woman that they put on the stand that they claimed was Trayvon Martin's girlfriend, there in no way, shape, or form was she ever his girlfriend. And all of the words that came out of her mouth were things that were coached to her by the prosecution and by the civil attorney, Benjamin Crump. And it's unreal when you watch it, because not only did she lie, but nobody in the courtroom called her on it. Like, nobody said, hey, you're not his girlfriend. No, the defense didn't know at that point. But it's unbelievable when people lie, and then you think the system is there to catch the lie, and they think it's going to be like Perry Mason, like Alex Jones the other day. That was a setup. I don't know. It's all rigged. I don't have a lot of confidence in jurisprudence at this point.
Well, I have to say, I'm taking another shot at it, another bite at the apple. Dave Underdown says, you mean a pastel color cashmere sweater? You need it to get into Bohemian Grove.
The video of Alex Jones going into Bohemian Grove is pretty good. It's like he and his camera guy are dressed like Tweedledum and Tweedledee. They've got polo shirts on, but they're kind of big, and they've got khaki pants on, and they've got like baseball hats, but like the kind of tight, small baseball hats, and Alex Jones is talking about the future of electronics. It's pretty funny. It's a pretty funny moment.
Peter, I think our job is, like I say, 9-second summaries that deliver you more insight than if you would have spent years in a library studying any particular author.
All right. Well, we're an hour and 15 minutes past the 9 seconds. So how do people help you out, George?
Well, I think they go, wait a minute.
You can go straight down. Yeah.
There.
Right there. If they go there, they can help you. And if they go there, they can help this channel.
Yep.
Yeah. And people have been very helpful. I've just started doing like bookkeeping on this channel, like trying to, usually I just throw the credit card down and I pay it. And it's like what money comes in and money goes out. And if there's more money coming in than going out, then it's okay. But I didn't even know because I wasn't even measuring it. And there's someone, I've got to go find their name now, that actually subscribes. I don't even have a way to subscribe, but there's one person out there, and I thank you, who gives me like $5 a month. Like, they just set it up. So I was going through my records, and it's like, this person's paying me every month. It's like, thank you. That's great. That's what makes all of this stuff worth it. And it makes me want to keep going and keep working on stuff. So thank you for whoever's giving us the resources that we need to keep going. And what? I thought Producer Carrie says thank you too.
I want to do one more 9 seconds so that you get tremendous amounts of cash.
Oh, okay.
And I went to a little town called Guilford, and that's where Alex Lewis Carroll is from. And
Yeah.
of course, he wrote through the Looking Glass there. And when you realize that he wrote about the Mad Hatter, and that is Klaus Schwab, it's a madhouse. The Great Reset is Mad Hatter's topsy-turvy world, right? And then ask yourself one question now that you know Mad Hatter and now you know Klaus Schwab. Would this is a rhetorical question, would the Mad Hatter pour his own tea at his tea party? Would the Mad Hatter, in order to have his wacky, wild global reset tea party, would he pour his own tea? And if he pours his own tea, that means the Wuhan Military Games is where he did it. Not saying it's the Great Reset virus, but it may just be, Peter, the Great Reset virus.
Okay, and we could talk another show about whether or not it's monkeypox or aerosolized HIV. All right, with that, I'll talk to you later, George.
Thank you, Peter. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.